Welcome to my podcast, Cool Down with Abhay, where I bring in different people from the sports industry to come and engage in conversation with me so that you and I can learn more about the Indian sports ecosystem. Let's get right into it. Hey guys, so welcome to this episode of Cool Down with Abhay. Although the guest I have today, it doesn't directly work with Indian sports, but he is very knowledgeable and experienced in the international sports market. So I thought he would be a really interesting guest to have on the podcast. So his name is Geoff Wilson. He's a global strategist who's worked with FIFA, UEFA, FIBA, and many other federations. And let's not waste any more time and let's get right into it. Welcome.
Thanks very much. It's great to see and to hear that all the work that you're doing in India, and I think this podcast is a great idea. So looking forward to the next minutes with you and discussing sport.
Thank you so much. So what I normally do with all of my guests is I first ask them to give a little introduction as to how they got into sports in the first place. So how did you get introduced to sports?
Yeah, I got introduced to sports in Northern Ireland. There was a role as head of marketing and communications at the Irish Football Association. The Irish Football Association is like the AIFF equivalent in Northern Ireland. So basically, it's the governing body for football that is linked with into UEFA. That's linked then into FIFA, and that's the sort of the hierarchy. And I was the marketing and communications manager there at the Football Federation. So that looked after everything from commercial to communications to digital to fan engagement. And we had some brilliant programs that we did engaging with the Northern Ireland fans. We won awards in the UK, we won awards in Europe for a whole range of activities that we did. And then in 2014, in January 2014, I decided to leave and set up my own sports consultancy. And now I work with the likes of FIFA, UEFA, AFC, FIBA, Barcelona Football Club with their Innovation Hub and the Basketball Champions League. So mainly it's in football and basketball, and it's normally in the areas of strategy, marketing, fan engagement, commercial.
Yeah, something that I noticed while doing my research was you also work with the government over there as well, right?
That's right, so I've been very fortunate in that I've been appointed under the board of Tourism Northern Ireland. So that is a government organisation that drives tourism to our beautiful country. What I like about that is you're selling Northern Ireland PLC. You know, you've got to be proud about your country, and what better way than to tell people come and experience Northern Ireland. Now, one of the ways that we do that is we use sport. Northern Ireland, like India, is a sporting nation. We at the minute have probably the number one golfer in the world in terms of Rory McIlroy. We have 2 links courses here. And there's a range of other sporting heroes that come from a small island. So we would use tourism to drive, or sport to drive tourism here in Northern Ireland. So we've got football tournaments, the British Open was here, motorbike events, and these events are bringing people from all around the world to Northern Ireland. They're there for 4, 5, 6 days for that sport. They enjoy the hospitality, and then eventually they come back because they love the welcome, the hospitality, and the sightseeing that they can do. So it's a very interesting way using tourism, using sport to drive tourism.
Nice, that's awesome. That's the 2 beautiful things that are combining right there. So for all the people watching, can you explain to us what the role of a strategist is for these kind of federations that you mentioned?
So with any organization, be that in sport or not, you need a plan, you need a roadmap. It's like going from Mumbai to New Delhi. You will not go from Mumbai to New Delhi, just go into the car and away you go. You will either get out your mobile phone and go onto Google Maps, or you will get your map out, and that will tell you the quickest way to get from Mumbai to New Delhi. And a strategy is the exact same. If you are here and you want to go to here in 5, 6, 7 years' time, what's the best way to go from here to here. And the best way to do that is to create a strategy. And what is happening now is I've been very fortunate in that with some of these global sports, they have engaged myself and some of my other colleagues. We've been creating for a number of these organizations strategic modules, and these strategic modules are creating the content, creating the process, creating the plan, and then rolling that out within member federations. Why? Because federations can go from A to Z in a quick time. That gives them the roadmap to growth. And if you can grow the federations, then you're going to grow the sport. If everybody all grows together with a strong strategic plan, a strong focus, that is only good for the sport. And that's what sport really needs at this stage, is good strategic direction.
Yeah, that's a perfect definition. So, you mentioned that you have worked with FIFA and UEFA, which are like the top federations in football. Being in India, I'm interested in what differentiates your work with AFC, or rather, what are the challenges you face with AFC as compared to those other federations?
I have to say, all of these organizations are amazing in their own rights. Brilliant people working with them, brilliant programs, and genuinely developing the sport right across those regions. So the work that I've done with AFC is in Australia on digital, is in India. I was in New Delhi maybe 18 months ago, and doing a lot of work with the All Indian Football Federation, and also in Sri Lanka. What I would say in my time working with India, and I'm still in touch with the guys, is there is real good movement, real good progress that's happening in the federation. I mean, I would speak at global sporting events, and so I get a feel for what's happening in the event. And I think I mentioned this at a recent course that I was asked to speak on in India. You know, football, if you take as a sport, is a growing sport, and it's growing massively in India. And I do believe the Football Federation is doing a fantastic job. And it's not down to only the Football Federation. The Football Federation, the Football Federation needs the regional associations. It needs the clubs. It needs the coaches. It needs everybody to work together. It is not just down to the Football Federation. And not only that, but for me, I think for those football fans in India, it will take time to develop the sport. You have to start at grassroots and at improving coach education. And all of that is happening currently with the AIFF. It is not about always winning games at the international level, because at this stage, India as a football nation isn't at that level. So it's all about developing the game, and therefore where the development of the game needs to be is at grassroots, and that takes a couple of generations to get into the international level. So there's probably a little bit of expectation that's needed, but there's great work that's going on at the AIF Federation.
I'd love to know what you actually think about football. When you've come here and worked with it, like what are your takeaways from what you've witnessed over here?
I mean, for me, I think, first of all, the country's beautiful. The people are so warm and so welcome, so beautiful people. I think, obviously, cricket, which is great, is so big and important, and that is also good. And I think that is an important point to note. It is not one sport against the other sport. It shouldn't be about that. Sport should be united to help, not only to help people stay healthy, the community activity, but also just the competitiveness of sport. So sport should be united in all things. For me on the football side, I think there needs to be a realization of expectations with the fans. You are not going to win the World Cup next year. You've got to grow the base. You've got to strengthen the grassroots, the kids' football. You've got to strengthen the coaching, and you've got to really grow that up. And that might include doing coaching for free. And people might get a bit surprised at that, but I'm a UEFA A license coach. So basically, you have different licenses. You've got the level 1, you've got the D, the C, the B, the A, which I am, and then the pro license. As a licensed coach, I coach my kids' team for free, and I do not expect to be paid for that. That is for the love of the game and for me giving something back and helping my son's team. And I think if there's coaches out there that are in it solely for the money, then that's a cultural thing that needs to be tackled. I understand if you are a coach and you're getting paid in a full-time club, that's different.
Yeah.
That is very different. But I'm talking about the playing for fun side, the grassroots, and that needs to be strengthened. And there needs to be a working together to move the game of football forward.
Yeah, I want to stress that he is you're specifically talking about kids like under 10 or 8 years old, right?
Kids should be, for me, starting to play football at 5, 6 years, and they should be well coached. I actually think your best coaches should be at the 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old. Because if you've got bad coaches coaching at that end and you teach the kids bad technique, it's going to be very difficult to change their technique when they get older. So the best coaches should be really those A-licensed coaches coaching at the bottom end, coaching them right, coaching them well, so that they've got good technique as they get older.
So you've also started your own company, the Geoff Wilson Consultancy. Can you tell me what was the reasoning behind it, what made you start it, and what does it do?
Geoff Wilson Consultancy is really me. And what I do is I work with a range of global sporting organizations, and I help them on sports strategy, on sports marketing, on fan engagement, on commercial, on communications, on governance, on a range of areas. So me personally, I've been to 85 countries. So when you've been to 85 countries, you take all of that knowledge. It's not saying that aren't I great, because I'm just an average person, But what happens when you've been to 85 countries, you learn from all of the different people and you take something away. So as you learn from the 85, your knowledge expands. And as your knowledge expands, then you can provide stronger and better advice. So what happens is I either work individually with a federation, or I work with the global federation to build a capacity building program that's rolled out within their members. So it's in those broad areas. And then at times I work with other colleagues, and the overall bit is to move that sport of whether it's football, basketball, netball, motorsport, to move that sport forward.
Nice. Oh, motorsport as well you work with?
So I work with a road race in Northern Ireland called the Ulster Grand Prix. So it's motorbike racing on closed public roads. And the principles are the same in all of these sports. And those are sports strategy, good governance, commercial, bringing in the money, communication, building your brand. All of these things have got the same areas. There's little tweaks from sport to sport, but some of the principles are the same. And when you've built up your knowledge in all of these countries and in different sports, that becomes really valuable. And that's why people would contact me to say, okay, can we work? We see that you're doing a lot of this in this area. You've got all this knowledge. How can we help? How can you help us to move our sport forward, and our federations to develop and grow, or our clubs to develop and grow?
Nice. So something that was really interesting to me was that you were a co-founder of the Global Esports League. So, okay, what made you want to start something so completely unrelated from traditional sports, and what are your thoughts on esports? I would love to know that.
So I started the Global Esports League about maybe three years ago, and probably we were in it just too early, if we're being honest with you. And that was a league where we had people like Man City, Roma, Ajax all involved, competing against each other in a European league. We created highlights, and it went on to goal.com's Facebook site. We had lots of viewers, but probably at that stage There wasn't the same commercial interest in what there is now.
So was it like a FIFA tournament between these clubs?
A FIFA tournament, and basically people playing football. It was only football.
Okay.
So what happened is we looked at the figures, and the figures is all about eyeballs. And what I mean by that is people, where money is, eyeballs are.
Yeah.
So if you're looking at something, that's where people will spend the money, whether that's sponsorship or broadcast. And what has happened now is in esports, more people are playing esports, and because more people are playing esports, then there's more money going into that. And if most people will know, in different parts, especially in Asia and different places, kids are growing up with gaming almost front of mind.
Yeah.
It's becoming that, so those kids are nearly ingrained in gaming from a young age.
Yes.
And then it becomes addictive. So there's loads of eyeballs that's always in behind it. We seen the opportunity, the league, and got lots of knowledge in behind it. Now, where is esports going to go? Very interesting question. For me, with the whole COVID-19, esports has taken a real zip up.
Yeah.
More people are doing it, they're watching it, they're playing it because they're in the house. And I think over time, that means new gamers are there, people are staying on longer.
Yeah.
And because people are staying online longer, you'll start to see commercial interest coming that way. I do see esports being the game, playing, almost the fielder coach game. So football, basketball, and then the fighting games, Fortnite, etc., etc. Now I'm talking here as a parent.
Yeah.
So what I'm about to say may not hit with a lot of people. If you're playing fighting games, that especially if it goes into a kid's mind, I'm not sure that's good for the kid.
Okay.
If they're 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 years old, and in their mind is fight, I'm going to slay somebody, that cannot be good for their minds.
Yeah.
So I do have concerns about the fighting side. If we look at the other side, the FIFA, the NBA 2K, you're playing the sport virtually. So you're starting to still to learn little bits as well as learning the players' names.
Yeah.
So I see that less. My concern again as a parent would be how active. What we don't want is to have a nation of couch potatoes.
Yeah.
We want people to be active, and that's what the beauty of sport is, and to interact with people. Now, I know you can interact with esports, I know you can do that, but there's nothing better than physically interacting and physically playing a sport. My gut feeling is, I think though, esport on the fighting side and on the playing side will grow.
Yeah.
And if that grows, that's where the money is. And if that's where the money is, that's where we need to understand those opportunities as sports strategists. So what I've tried to say is some personal thoughts about it.
Yeah.
But overall, I think it will grow. And as a sports strategist, you need to be aware of that market.
So I'd love your opinion on this. So in one of my earlier episodes of the podcast, I had an episode with Dr. Rishinda Sinha. He owns a esports franchise. And we spoke about this exact topic where he is the opposite of you. He prefers to not go into sport games because he feels that while all of us, we love to play FIFA and NBA and we're super engaged in it, but the audience for that game, for those kind of games, aren't there that much because people would rather actually watch a football game or a basketball game. So what would you say to that? What is your response to that kind of analysis?
I mean, I totally understand where he's coming from. He's going where the eyeballs are.
Yeah.
And the eyeballs are on the fighting side, the Fortnite, etc., etc. The same amount of eyeballs are not on the NBA 2K side, so I understand that. I think for me, again, what I'm not saying is that's where it's at. Where it's at, unfortunately, is the fighting side.
Yeah.
That's where the eyeballs are. What I'm saying is that cannot be good for young children's minds. playing the actual game has got to be better for the kids' minds because they're getting to learn the sport. This is all about fighting and winning, and slaying somebody and whatever cannot be good for young kids' minds, and we have to protect them. And now, what I understand, that's where the eyeballs are. And if the eyeballs are there, that's where people will go to grab their money. So is it about grabbing your money? Is it about enjoyment? Is it about where the eyeballs? So these are some moral questions. There is a reason, and listen to this, there is a reason why the Olympics are not happy, are not getting engaged in the fighting side of esports. And if the Olympics do not get involved in the fighting side of esports, you've got to ask yourself, why not, when that's where the eyeballs are?
Yeah.
Now, what the Olympics are going to do is probably look at the esports, but on the playing side, i.e. NBA 2K, maybe it's FIFA with esports. But what they're saying at this stage, they do not want, because it doesn't go with their values.
Yeah.
So if the Olympics, the biggest sport in the world, the biggest event in the world, does not want to embrace the fighting side, you have to ask why. You have to, and I do believe they are right.
Yeah. It's a very interesting argument, honestly. Yeah. So okay, let's move on from that. So let's talk about. So you're also an advisor to Barca Innovative Hub, right? So can you tell me a little bit about your role over there?
So Barcelona Football Club is a global brand. Everybody knows a Barcelona Football Club. I see in the background you've got a small team called Man United.
Yes.
They're just a small team. So Barcelona is probably one of the top 10 brands in the world.
Yeah.
Everybody knows of them. So Barcelona has created a Barcelona Innovation Hub, and that looks at sports tech businesses, and it looks at e-learning.
Yeah.
So e-learning is all about commercializing, what's in the brains of those in Barcelona, and et cetera, and then using that on an e-learning platform. So they approached me to create a digital marketing course in sport, and that's really to teach people how best and how to improve doing digital sport marketing. So I launched the course 2 weeks ago. We have got loads of people that are already on the course that love the course. The feedback has been so positive. I've given you the link. If you go on to barcainnovationhub.com and type in digital marketing in sport, the course, and you can buy the course and you get online. And really what I've been asked to do is to create the course content, which I've done. And Barcelona Football Club have now launched it. So the feedback has been amazing. So many people have been on. And I would ask people, to go on to barcainnovationhub.com, type in digital marketing in sport course, and they will see that course and maybe look at taking it.
I'll actually add the link to the description, so if anybody wants to go visit it, they'll be able to.
That is great, and you can get a certificate as well, which is not only you get a certificate from Barcelona Football Club, as well as the education. So if you could check out that link and check out the course, I think you would enjoy it.
Yeah. So something I wanted to discuss with you was the fans and the relationship the fans share with its society. No matter what generation of time you speak about, sports has been so important to society. So can you tell me what you feel is the importance that sports lies with the fans?
To me, sport is such an important bit of all communities. Not only from a health and keeping fit point of view, from a communication point of view, from a socializing point of view, from a team point of view, from a nutrition point of view, from a mental health point of view, sport. And I think people are starting to see the importance and the impact that sport has. And we need sport more than ever with
Yeah.
COVID-19, and we will need it even more so when we come out of COVID-19. So for me, it's important. As you know, and I'll send the link to you as well, so you can include it as well. I have co-created, along with a good friend called David Fowler, a fan engagement model. And what we were saying in the model is 4 quadrants.
Yeah.
In quadrant 1 is at the game, at the stadium on game day, which is
Yeah.
what most people focus on. But you have on match day or game day, but you're not at the stadium.
Yeah.
You also have not game day or not match day when you're at the venue or stadium. And then the final bit is what you have is not on match day or game day when you're not at the stadium.
Yeah.
And what we created these 4 quadrants to say you must as a club engage people in these 4 quadrants. So quadrant 1, for example, is if you are at the stadium on game day, that's about fan zones. That's about great food and beverage. If you're at on game day and you're not at the stadium, that's about unique content on your social media, behind the scenes content. That's about OTT, live streaming the event.
Yeah.
If you are not on match day, but you're at the stadium or venue, that could be stadium tours, venue tours, museums. And then the last bit is not on game day and not at the stadium. That's about where you're going into the community and doing a deep community over several weeks with the community using football, and people then are engaging with your brand.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think what clubs have got to do, they've got to make sure that the fan is front and center.
Yeah.
Without fans, the sport is the impact of the sport is greatly reduced. You need players, you need referees, you need coaches, you need administrators, but the fans is such an important stakeholder. So that's why when we created this model, and if you're whether you're a football club or whether you're an Indian club in terms of cricket, whatever sport, you've got to make sure, how do I engage my fans during the event when on game day? When it's not game day, you can't just turn the tap on and turn the tap off.
Yeah.
You've got to have it all the time, engagement, and using this quadrant. And again, I'll send you the link so you can include that. Using this quadrant gives you the model to be able to say, how do we improve that engagement all the time and get closer to your fans?
And we've seen moments like with Drogba and Ivory Coast, how he literally saved a civil war just because of his influence on the entire country. So that's what I mean by influence on the society. Talking about the fans and how important they are to the game. Pep Guardiola recently said before the lockdowns and all started, he was one when they were still having the discussion of closed door games and things like that. He was saying that there's no point in playing these games behind closed doors because we play for the fans. So I wanted to know what your opinion on, while we're in this lockdown situation, if this keeps on going on forever, do you think it would be a good idea to play behind closed doors?
I think it's a very interesting conversation. I think a lot depends on commercial comes into play.
Yeah.
So you almost have health, the health of the players, the health of the fans, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
And then you've got the commercial side. Because nowadays there's so much money in sponsorship, there's so much money in broadcast and TV. If they don't get their content, then they can't pay, or they'll not pay the club, the league, or the federation.
Yeah.
So the club, league, and federation are dependent on that money.
Yeah.
And I think that is where our issue is. And what I'll be saying is you should always be trying to maximize all revenue streams. But if you're a club, a league, or a federation, and you're solely focused on one revenue stream, i.e. broadcast revenue, then days like and times like this see how vulnerable you are. In other words, you need to make sure you've got several revenue streams coming in and not just reliant on one, because if one drops, and that's an important one, where does that leave the club? It's not a sustainable model. So I think that's something that I would put out there. I think the other thing is because there's so much money now on TV, broadcast rights, I think the leagues and the clubs want to give something to be able to finish off the season or to do the event. And if that means that there's no fans at the event, but they broadcast it behind closed doors, it would be surreal.
Yeah.
It would be probably not a great experience because you'll miss the fans. But if it's to satisfy the commercial pressures, then I would say these opportunities will be definitely discussed, if not implemented, in the short term at least.
Yeah. So what would you think? I mean, I'm praying that this doesn't happen, but if suppose we don't get a vaccine in a year's time, not even a year's time, if we're in the same situation in October, November, December, that time, if they still had to continue with like football leagues and stuff, would you think it would be a good idea to even at that point have it at closed doors, or open up the stadium but reduce the amount of people who can actually enter, make the seats distance? What would you suggest to carry on with the game?
I think if we don't get a vaccine and if we don't get a hold of the virus in each country, it will be, oh, everything's going well, social distancing, can relax, you can go outside. Then as we mix together and we don't get things right, we'll be back down in lockdown. Then we'll be back okay, then back in lockdown, then okay. And that could be over a year. So for me, I actually think a very interesting conversation is how do we change the traditional league format? Now, I'm a traditional sports guy, so I play my league, and that makes a lot of sense. But for 1 year, do we have to have a change in having mini leagues, mini blitzes, mini tournaments? So if there is a lockdown, it doesn't have the same impact.
Can you explain that? How would that change? How would that change the impact?
So let's say we do not get let's say we get the hold of the virus between now and July. So we're all good, but no vaccine. Let's say the virus comes back in September. We're in the same situation. So what we might have to do to be flexible is to have weekends of games on. That's cup type activity, tournament type activity, rather than a full season in football terms from September until May, because you may not get the full season because you might be in lockdown, then released, in lockdown, then back to normal, in lockdown, back to normal. And if that happens during a full year, that's going to be very difficult to implement a league season. So unless we get a vaccine and unless we play behind closed doors and everything's behind closed doors and there's a vaccine, I think we could struggle to get another league season 100% completed. And if we struggle to get a league season 100% completed in 1 year, just for 1 year, how do you try to make sure you can do mini tournaments, mini leagues that satisfies the broadcast, satisfies the fans, etc., etc., etc. Now, if we do get a vaccine, then we're all okay, and we can go back to normality within a year. But I'm more concerned about the next year. That's where my concern is. I'm not thinking of doing this forever and a day. What I'm saying is we might need to look at the different league and tournament formats for 1 year until we really grasp. And I think part of that will be at venues is how do we test if somebody has a temperature or not? How do we implement social distancing? So these are some big areas that people are still thinking about and discussing. For me, I think it's too early days, but I get the feeling that short term it will be behind closed doors. And I think then longer, I think this idea of mini tournaments, I think is an option. And I think there'll have to be a lot of testing to test people to come in to make sure they don't have the virus when they come into a stadium. And again, that's going to take time to implement that.
Yeah, but I feel like even if you do have short tournaments continuously throughout a year, people will be so discouraged to attend such a large gathering in a stadium during this year at least, right? So I feel like that would have a huge impact on attendances.
Yeah, they'll be even more discouraged if they go to a league and they realize they've all got coronavirus. If they
Yeah.
all just go back,
Yeah.
you'll be even more discouraged.
Yeah.
Uh,
No, but that's what I'm saying. That's why I'm saying. Like, wouldn't you be discouraged from going to the game and not risk that?
well, the latest research that I've seen is that 30% of hardcore fans will go back no matter what. 30% will probably be a little bit swayed, and the remaining 40% will not go back.
Yeah.
Now, those figures over time will change.
Yeah.
So what a club needs to do is those sort of fans that are a little bit iffy at this stage, they need to convince them that everything's in place to protect their health.
Yeah.
Because that's what it has to be about, protecting the health of the fans and the players. That can be done with the players. The fans, with such a large amount of people, like my background at the minute,
Yeah.
you know, it takes only maybe 20 people in that type of thing, and all of a sudden the virus is just poof, on again. So,
Yeah.
but what we need to do, we need to manage expectations. We need to put in place, stringent rules and stringent ways to make sure that we're doing everything to protect the fans. And
Yeah.
there is a way around it, and there is ways of doing it. So I do not want to say that everything will be closed doors. I do not want to say that there's going to be issues when you open it up again. There's always solutions, and those will start to come through over time.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm really looking forward to see what's actually going to happen at the end of this and how the sporting world is going to react to this. And yeah, let's just wait and see. Oh, you want? Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, what I would say, sorry, the bit I would say is those clubs and leagues and federations that are preparing for Plan C, they'll
Yeah.
survive. So Plan A might be we continue back as normal, but
Yeah.
Plan C might be do we go behind closed doors? So it's those clubs, leagues, federations that are thinking a what if scenario. And how do they implement a what if scenario? I would stress that clubs, leagues, and federations must be thinking of that now. Don't wait until it's too late. Look at different scenarios and what could happen.
Yeah, like I said, it's a really interesting something to look. It's really interesting. I'm really looking forward to seeing how the sporting world reacts to what's happening. But I'm so happy that you actually took time out of your day to have this conversation with me. Thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you. Anyway,
Listen, lovely to hear from you. You can keep in touch.
thank you so much.